this execution context will be gone. Why? And this guy got really confused. What did you break? Did you break your mobile? What is actually global? Now I think it is high time to explain what is actually execution context. Hello everyone, how is everyone doing? I hope everyone is doing great. And today we are going to talk about a very important concept of programming, which is execution context. It's a very important topic to understand, especially to understand the JavaScript execution, how it executes the application. So without any further ado, let's get started. So in execution context, there are basically two terms, execution and context. First, we need to understand what is a context. It's really important to understand, and we will see that in general term. So let's see that. So here, two guys are talking to each other. They're having a conversation, and this guy is saying that I broke it. And this guy got really confused. What did you break? Did you break your mobile? Did you break your laptop? Or did you break your car? Or did you just break up? This guy did not understand what was the context he was talking about. This guy was actually pointing to a deal. So he basically broke a deal. So here the context is basically the deal. So context is nothing but some information based on which an action happens. Here the action is the conversation. So I hope you have understood what is context in general. This is nothing but some information. Now let's see what is context in programming. So to explain execution context, I have taken here a simple piece of code. There is basically a variable in the global, and this function has been declared and this function has been called here. And this function is basically adding 10 with this global variable x, and it is returning this result. And whatever it is returning, that is being saved in this result one. So it's a very simple piece of code. Now we shall execute this line by line and we shall see how the execution context actually works. So we shall have a better picture. So let's start. So initially this line will be executed and this line is in the global. So when the global execution started, there will be a global in the call stack. And what is call stack? If you do not know what is call stack, then I will recommend to watch my lecture on asynchronous execution. There I have explained it in details what is call stack. So just to give a brief on this, call stack basically holds the functions that have been called. So whatever at the top of the call stack, that function is being executed. Right now the global is at the top, so global is being executed. Okay. So what is actually global? So I want to explain this global a little bit more. So let's see that what is actually a global. So this is the very same piece of code that we have just seen. And the execution will start here, like global will be in the call stack immediately. So global execution started. And whatever we declared outside of any kind of function, that is in the global. So any code that is not inside any kind of function, that is in global for sure. And this function is also in global and this is also in global. But these line of codes, they are not in the global. They are inside this function. Global is the parent for them kind of. Okay, so it is kind of like this, like this whole thing inside a global function. And the global is called here. So it is kind of like this. Inside this global function, all the things are being done. Okay, so it is similar to main function in C# and Java. Okay, so there in the main function, basically the execution starts. So here in the global, basically the execution starts. But of course, I mean, I have just written it to show you guys, but there is no global function actually. It is by default in the global. Whatever we write in JavaScript, anything outside a function, that is by default in the global in JavaScript. So this is what is global in JavaScript. So now let's continue our execution. So this line of code will be executed in the global. Now when the JavaScript starts its execution, during the execution, there are basically two phases. One is the memory phase, or it is also called the initialization phase, and another is execution phase. Now let's see the memory phase. So this is the memory phase. This is our global scope and this will be our memory. So in the memory phase, what will happen basically, first of all, in this line, a variable x is declared. So what will happen basically, it will take a variable called x in the memory and initially it will be undefined. Okay, very simple. Now the execution will move to the next line. So this is basically a function. So in the memory phase, what will happen basically, it will just store that function in the memory. So it will be function. So I'm writing it in short, basically this function. Now our execution will move to the next line. So here it will come to this line, and here in the memory phase, this result one will be undefined. So result one is basically undefined. Okay, so our memory phase is done. Now the execution phase will start. So now let's execute. So this line will be executed first. What will happen here basically, now in this X, it will basically store this 10. So here it will be 10. Okay. Now in execution phase, it saw this, it is function declaration. It will not do anything and it will come here, and here the function is called. So now this function will be executed. Okay. In JavaScript, there are basically two execution contexts. One is global execution context, one is function execution context. Now I think it is high time to explain what is actually execution context. So let's first see what is global execution context. So in global execution context, there are basically three terms. One is global, one is execution, one is context. Okay. So by global, it basically means that the global scope. And this execution basically means the code will be executed. Okay. Depending on what? Depending on the context. And this context is basically nothing but this memory. Whatever there is in the memory, that is basically the context. Okay, so we can say it is basically context. As I have already said previously in the general explanation, that context is nothing but some information based on which an action happens. So just like that, depending on this context, this action happens. Here the action is basically the execution. So I hope the execution context is 100% clear now. The context is nothing but this memory. Whatever the information is here, depending on that, the execution will happen basically. And if that happens in the global scope, that is global execution context. If that happens in the function scope, then that is function execution context. Now let's draw the function execution context. So now this function will be executed. So it will be in the call state first. So function 1 is in the call state. So now let's draw the diagram for the function execution context. So initially it will be in the memory phase, and it is the function scope, and here we have our memory. Now this function will be executed here in this context. So let's execute that. So execution will start here. So in the memory phase, what it will do, it will basically set this result to undefined here. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, very simple. Remember, we are in the memory phase. All right, now let's move to the next line. And here it saw that basically it is returning result. So it will not do anything in the memory phase. Now the memory phase is done. So now the execution phase will start. Here in the execution phase, what it will do basically, it will add 10 with this variable x. And where is this variable? First of all, it will look into the context of its own. And there is no x here. There is only result. If it does not find it here, then it will look at its parent context. Basically, it will look into here. This variable is here. And it will take the value from here to here. Basically, this x variable. Okay. And it will add 10 with this 10. Basically, this 10 and this 10. So it will be 20. So here you can see it is basically 20. The result will store 20. Okay, simple. Now what will happen? It will move to the next line. And here it is returning basically the result. Whenever a function will return something, context will go away. Okay, so this context will be removed. This function execution context, and it will basically return this result here, and it will be saved here in this result one. And where is this result one? This is here inside this global context. Okay, so then this 20 will be moved from here to here basically in this result, and this result 1, so in this result 1 is here, so it will remove this undefined and this 20 will be saved. And also this execution context will be gone. Why? Because it's a function execution context, and function execution, when function returns something, that will be immediately removed from the call stack, and also the execution context will be gone. So let's remove that. Here, the execution will move to the next line, and there is nothing else. The execution is done here. Okay, so this is how the JavaScript actually executes the application. So there is global context, there is function context, basically global execution context and function execution context. And what do they actually mean? We have seen that, we have understood what is actually the context. Okay. And I also want to tell you this, that in the global scope, we have these things in the context basically. Apart from these things, we have also few more things. Like in the global, we will also have the window object. This is by default given by the JavaScript. And we shall also have this object, and this will basically point to this window object in the global. But in the function, that this can point to something else. Okay. So in future lectures, we will see how this works. For now, let's just understand in the global context, there is a window object and there is a this object. Both are basically pointing to the same object. Okay. So I hope the concept of execution context is 100% clear now. How the global execution works, how the function execution works. Understanding this concept is really important to understand many more concepts in JavaScript like closure, variable hosting, and many more things. And you will feel how much this lecture of understanding the execution context clearly will help you in future. And don't forget to subscribe. Please subscribe to the channel. It's a great inspiration to us. And if you like the video, give it a like. You have no idea how much it matters. And in the next video, we're going to see how the closure works. It's a very important concept in JavaScript. So you will understand the closure using the execution context, what we have seen today. So see you in the next lecture. Until then, take care of your health, keep growing your knowledge, and keep applying your knowledge.